Ladies and gentlemen, today on the What's in My Head podcast, I've got Mr. Billy West, royalty in the voice acting community. Billy, how are you, sir?
Oh, I wouldn't say that, but I'm glad you did.
I mean, anybody that doesn't say that, I mean, like when I set out to do this podcast, there was two people at the top of I don't have it here right now, I got it the other one, but my little Snoop Dogg notepad that my wife's boss sent me.
Yeah.
I write all my little notes down in so I didn't forget, because I go off on these tangents and I end up forgetting.
Sure.
Your name and Rob Paulson was on my list. And
oh, wow.
8 weeks, I can say that I've been doing this, give or take. And I've scratched both of you guys off my list now. So it's fantastic, man.
Dr. Robbie?
Yeah. I did that one by the phone, and I'm so glad I did, because I teared up numerous times, and I didn't want that to, come back and bite me in the ass, or, come back and use that as a meme, me crying like a little kid.
Yeah, sure.
But it was a fantastic and a surreal experience. Like I told you before, I'd never thought I'd be talking to you or him or anybody that I've talked to. And it's just fantastic.
Yeah, he's so great. He's so great. I get to see him here and there and work with him.
Yeah.
I think I'm doing something next week, working with Robbie on something.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. Fantastic book as well. But just to kind of kick it off and, break the ice a little bit, I mean, I'll ask you some of the same questions that most people ask you, like, how'd you get started? I try to steer away from that, but it always tends to come back around. But I figure we start off a little different. I usually end the podcast with questions. I always put up there, this is who I'm talking to. What would you like to ask? And one of my best friends, he's a huge Futurama fan and a huge fan of Ren and Stimpy, and you as well. His name is Shane. And he wanted to know what was the most emotional episode of Futurama that you had to record.
Let's see. There were a couple. There were a couple of moments where I don't know. Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
I knew it was written sad. I remember recording it, and I knew it was going to be sad, but I didn't know how sad until I saw it on television.
Yeah.
And I got all wistful, and and I just kept thinking about how great animals are, and how they, they make us better than we are, and all those other cliches went through my head,
When you're reading for something like Fry or any of the characters you do, a lot of you guys will say that you get a picture of what the character looks like, or at least a description if there's no picture.
Yes.
When you started reading for Fry, did you know that you were getting Fry, or did you try out a whole bunch of other characters? You've done Zoidberg and then Zapp Brannigan and the Professor, but did you know 100% you were going to be Fry?
I remember I auditioned for Fry. And I hadn't heard anything from them. I did the Professor, tried that out for them, and Zoidberg, and they liked that stuff. They had me come back a couple times, I think. Read. I even read for Bender, and
really?
But John DiMaggio, he had the ultimate perfect take on it.
Yeah.
And, you can't beat it. It's unbeatable. But Fry, originally, I did not get that voice. And then they were starting to get things going. And then they decided to call me and have me come in and do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does a Billy West Bender sound like? Did it sound anything close to what Joe was doing, or do you remember?
No, it just sounded like a big truck driver.
Yeah. That's a fantastic little run, though. I mean, when you and Joe were working on it, like, did you guys all shoot in the same room, or was it you guys filmed separate or recorded separate lines?
Me and Johnny?
Yeah, well, just the cast in general.
Usually we were in the same room.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it was mostly ensemble. Yeah, because there's a really cool energy that happens with ensemble players. You're in there and you're riffing off each other, and when nobody's reading and we're just taking a breather or whatever, the funniest stuff happens.
Yeah.
And I used to live to make John crack up laughing so much that we'd be back on the microphones doing our job, and he would just burst out laughing. And it happened so many times they had to send him to the corner to this couch. And and take a couch pillow and put it over them.
And that's something to, take
funny that way, that energy,
Yeah. Well, that's something that you can, put a little feather in your cap that, you had to give him the little laughing pillow and send him off in the corner and, tell him to calm down. So that must feel good.
It's true though. It's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And they don't want to throw him out of the room like a dog or something. You know what I mean? But they say, John, if you're going to laugh, I mean, at least build an igloo in the corner or something.
When you think about Futurama, so I can tell you exactly where I was at when I saw that first episode. I was my dad had just gotten out of prison. I hadn't seen him in a long time, and I went up there with my grandma Faye and Grandpa Jim to see him and spend the summer. And I remember it coming on the TV, and I was just left to my own devices at the point. Everybody went to sleep. I'm just hanging around. I'm just flipping through, looking for cartoons. And I see this one kicking off, and I'm like, oh, wow, this is a new premiere episode and everything. I was like, so let's check this out. And I remember even at a young age, feeling very, not depressed, not the right word. It's like sad that Fry left everything, to get frozen into the future. When you do Fry, because Fry you sound exactly like Fry. Fry sounds exactly like you.
Well, I mean, I try to make him sound like a 25-year-old version of me.
Yeah. Well, sounds pretty good though.
Yeah, that was all whiny and nasally and complaining.
Now, what was your thinking behind Fry? Or like, did they give you any notes? They say this is what we want him to sound like?
Yeah, they gave me some notes. They didn't tell me exactly what they wanted him to sound like. I just offered up the fact that a really hard voice for people to do is somebody's real voice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If it's not a put on, and my voice naturally is sort of plain vanilla. And when I was 25, I remember being in bands and complaining, on stage. Oh man, I broke a string. Now what am I supposed to do? Oh man, the amp blew up. We don't even have any roadies or shit, And I was, like that, whining. And I don't know if I'm still like that. I hope not, but that would have been my choice. And I offered it up, and they said, that sounds great. And he said, it sounds like him. And then they said, just go by the guidelines, which was that he was a 25-year-old pizza delivery boy. So I knew he had a work ethic of some type. He was up for doing things. He must have been, to deliver pizzas to a cryogenics factory and stuff like that. So I was kind of an optimistic person, like in the face of things that could have been horrific, because you don't know any better.
Yeah.
In other words, you just sort of like Candide, in literature, you're just sort of like, wow. It was like the Beatles in Hard Day's Night. And they're like, oh, look, a room, windows, oh, a door, They were amazed at everything. It was so funny. A piano.
Now, I asked Rob when I talked to him the same question I'm going to ask you. What is Thanksgiving like with Billy West?
It's probably a drag for everybody else because I eat vegan turkey.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like they used to call it the Zen turkey, and then it was tofurkey, and and it's like this loaf that's made out of textured protein, sort of like the new hamburgers, the plant burgers that taste exactly like a hamburger.
Yeah.
So they were, but I became a vegan like almost 20 something years ago.
Yeah.
And, I was, let's see. Yeah. I mean, everybody else is eating gravy, and this tofurkey had its own special gravy, and everything special for me. And I felt like a dork, but, I don't know. I'm pretty well behaved around the house, you know?
I mean, if like I always wanted, like, my voice is pretty annoying. So I try not to talk too much, but like when I got a 10-year-old, so when he was growing up, I'd read him stories and I'd try to do voices and I would try to emulate you guys, and other people I looked up to. And then
Mhm.
my kid at a very young age, they're super honest with you. It's like, Dad, you're not very good at this. Can
Oh,
we just,
wow. Yeah,
can we
kids are
just,
brutal.
yeah, just, can we stick to normal voices and get through this? And I'm like, I mean, I was trying, but yeah, I guess so. What was it like? Did you have that kind of same story, or did you do voices for your kids when you would read them stories?
Well, I never had kids. I
No.
was married, but I was doing catch up, and I devoted myself totally to a career,
Yeah.
and I got so busy that my head was spinning. But I mean, I like to fool around with kids, like reading and stuff to them whenever I've had the chance. And if one of them just like loses attention, I'll go, okay. Once upon a time, there was this spoiled little brat, and he wouldn't pay any attention to anybody. You know, and then the kid will go like, oh, busted.
What's your favorite voice to order through and drive through? Do you pull it out
Oh,
of the
I
air?
don't know. I like to go, oh, yeah, I'd like to get a couple of hamburgers.
That's fantastic. I've tried them, but like I said, I'm not very good at it. But it's just something I don't try that often. But what was the thought when you went 20 years ago, went vegan? I'm a big food guy, so I always like talking food with people.
Um, I was getting sick. I lived in New York. This is about 25 years ago.
Okay.
I lived in New York City. I was working on the Howard Stern show,
Hmm.
radio show in New York. And I remember going to some restaurants in the city, and you would think of all places, New York City would have like the absolute best. And they did at one time. And then I guess the health inspectors were getting paid off, and restaurants that had A ratings in their window, you go in and I must have picked up food poisoning somewhere because I couldn't stop throwing up. I mean, I'd
Yeah.
leave the restaurant, I'd be in the street retching.
Hmm.
And then it just was continuous. And I said, what the hell am I going to do?
Yeah.
And, but I did have some sort of stomach, I don't know, like one of those food poisoning
Yeah.
germs, whatever it is that kind of stays with you and you have to find a way
Yeah.
to get rid of it.
Hmm.
So I said, okay, no more foodborne illness for me.
Yeah.
And I figured the safest way to go was be a vegetarian.
Hmm.
Yeah, because there were a lot of foods that have that proclivity for built-in foodborne illness.
Yeah.
Like meats and dairies. And
What was the hardest thing for you to like not eat again?
I don't know. I used to love lobster and
Yeah.
shrimp. And I loved like roast beef. You name it. I ate everything when I was
Yeah.
a kid. And I just I think fried chicken was always a weakness,
Oh man.
because it was cheap and you could get a bag of rolls. And when I didn't have any money, I lived in an apartment, and I remember going and getting like an extra bag of rolls and 2 pieces of chicken, and and I was drinking then, so I'd wash it down with a half a quart of brandy.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Oh, I was bad. I
Yeah.
was really bad, and I straightened out.
Well, I'm glad you did, man, because we
Me
need
too.
we need Billy West.
Oh,
It's funny. You brought up fried chicken, and if it is my favorite food to cook and my favorite food to eat in the world. If I could eat it every day and not be 400 pounds, I absolutely would. But when you brought up a story when you were, young and before you had, money, same concept, man. I had joined the Navy back in 2009. I had a wife that was pregnant.
wow.
Yeah, and we had very little money between her student loans and everything like that. And then being away from family for the first time, I'm 19, she was 24.
Wow.
Yeah, or 23, turning 24. We had to make a budget last, right? So I would get one chicken, cut it in half, and then we would get 3 meals between out of it, you know, for us. So it's nice seeing those parallels. I mean, you went the great route, you know, the cartoons, the voices, the memories. I went that route, was like, man, it sucked, but you know, it put food on the table. But it was always, it's nice seeing parallels in what people do. It's chicken, chicken's cheap. We can eat chicken. Let's continue to eat chicken. Do you miss anything now, or is that just completely out of your system as far as meat or dairy goes?
It's all out of my system. I'm just so used to eating substitutes. Plus, there's in vegan cooking, there's an entire world of things that most people haven't experienced, and the things that you can do cooking with vegetables and beans and spices. And you know, I can eat Italian food. I can go to a Chinese restaurant and just eat, like, you know, tofu and vegetables and egg roll. You know, so it's just basically any kind of meat. I don't eat fish, and I don't eat chicken.
How do you feel?
People go, what do you eat? And I'm like, I have a box of bird seed in my pocket.
I used to work for this guy that was a vegan. My last command I was at before I got out, and we went to a soul food place, and this is in Virginia. Excuse me. And they were like, "Why'd you take me here?" We're like, "We're going to see if you were actually a vegan. We wanted to catch you eating ribs, or we wanted to catch you eating chicken or pulled pork or something like that." So he was like, "Well, what am I supposed to eat? They don't really have it." Well, hold on, wait right here. So I went outside. I broke a tree branch off of an oak tree. I brought it back in. And I put it on the table. I'm like, "This is what you're going to eat." And he's like, "You know, if this was any other job, I could fire you right now, but I can't fire you. Sit down, leave me the fuck alone." So I was like, "All right, cool, my bad." You know, so it's a sensitive subject with most people, but like, I always like talking food. But I talked to one of your old what do you want to call it? Friends, voice actors as well, the other day, Connie Schulman, Patty Gates herself.
I loved her. I absolutely loved working with her.
She's had nothing but great things to say about you and Mr. Freeman, for you and Skeeter, essentially. And Doug was one of those shows that it still hits right here. Was that your first, I don't want to say your first big pop, because Ren and Stimpy was before Doug, I believe. I'm almost 100% sure.
It was right around the same time.
Yeah. So, I mean, was that the first, were you starting to get recognized real quick and out and about when you were doing Ren and Stimpy, or did that really blow up at Doug, or was it before that?
Let's see. All I can tell you is that, you know, I'm a journeyman, and it meant work, no matter what it was.
Yeah.
You can't know if you can't know when you're in the middle of something if it's going to be a cultural phenomenon or not. You have no idea. It's an assignment, you know. Yeah. And I was doing commercials in New York and everything, but these cartoons, these Nicktoons, seem special. Something about them, you know. They wanted to do shows like nobody else was doing. You know, whatever was on Saturday morning was no good to them. They wanted to reinvent the wheel by putting all animation on Sunday mornings. Yeah. And cartoons would have their own specific identities. There wouldn't be a style that you could say, "Oh, that's Nickelodeon." You know what I mean? Yeah. And it drove people crazy. Disney, you know, we're the children's network. Well, why are these people getting all the ratings and attention? You know, we're the ones that are for the kids. So they spectrum analyzed Nickelodeon's success, you know, and I think they wanted to buy every show that Nick had, that wanted to do. They try to replicate that success. I guess, you know, just things go up and down, and what's popular and what isn't, and what catches on and what doesn't catch on. There's no real formula, and you know, the executives and stuff, they want to believe so desperately that there's a formula. Yeah. And there isn't. There just isn't. I know from being there. It's stuff that's like pre-guaranteed to be a hit falls flat on its face. Yeah. You know, because the heart wasn't there, or the soul, or the mindsets, or I don't know. Do you something? Go ahead. Oh, go ahead. No, I was gonna say something can just sneak up out of nowhere and knock everybody dead, and it becomes like a cult sort of excitement about it, and then it goes mainstream. You know, that's the way things happen.
Now, another cult phenomenon, if you will, was Invader Zim.
Oh yeah.
I had this box set with me no matter where I was at in the world. This one is probably the one that I attached to the most when I was growing up, as far as your work goes, until I got a little bit older and I started realizing, like, that guy sounds like this guy. And then I come to find out when the internet was formed, and I just hit Google, who are all these people? I'm like, holy shit, it's you. But Zim, was that just another phone call? Hey man, come out for this show, or did you seek this one out, or how'd that go?
I was just hired to do the pilot episode, do the voice on the pilot episode, and that was it.
Yeah.
That's all I did with that show. I mean, sometimes it's a way to help get something off the ground, and then they take a reappraisal of what's going on, and and then they recast. And my friend Richard Horvitz got the role of Zim, and I mean, he's a killer in my book, man. He's a pro. I have nothing but the absolute utmost respect for him, and I love his energy. So I mean, I'm always happy. There's nothing I wish I could have got.
Yeah.
I'm happy to get something and then turn it into something else. It's like it's alchemy.
Yeah.
That's the thing with celebrity voiceovers is, years ago, the producers would have us come in and they'd be sitting at a table, and you'd come in and there'd be a bar of lead on the table, and they would go, listen, we want you to turn that hunk of lead into gold for us before you leave. And Jesus, you could do it. I mean, it was like, it didn't look like lead to me. It looked like it was anything I imagined it to be. And that's where we came from as voiceover artists. It's about alchemy. Something's got to change. I can't use this voice for every single thing I did.
Yeah. Because
I'm not a celebrity, and I don't have the luxury of being and sounding exactly like who and what I am. So, I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's a sticking point with me. I mean, the voices, if they weren't famous, a lot of those voices would be just nothing but anemic.
Yeah.
They just, it's like sending a bunch of highly skilled plumbers to win the World Series for you. Yeah, they're great. They're the best at what they do, but they don't belong at Fenway Park.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I've said this numerous times, and I'm pretty sure people are going to hate me for saying it again, but you guys take something that is, flat, it's two-dimensional, and you guys make it three-dimensional. And that's a testament to you guys' hard work and what you guys do. When you see a new character, what are some of those thoughts that go through your head when you're trying to find a voice, you're trying to feel for this character?
It's a weird process. I mean, I'm sure that it's not uncommon amongst other artists, and I'm always blown away at what my friends come up with. I'm in admiration of it. It's like going to school when I go to a recording session, because you watch, everybody's got their 1-2 punch. That's the difference between like being a celebrity who's coming in there as a stunt cast, and people who are artisans, craftspeople who work on things with their heart and soul. They cannot be themselves. They can't have any link to themselves. They have to be disembodied. And then, to act on one thing or two things is one thing, but acting on 20 things and making it real acting, and not being who and what you are, that's the reward for somebody like me. I mean, I think long and hard before I open my mouth to do a character. And I know a lot about, the human condition, and I know a lot about life, and, as an actor would, but this is a whole different thing. You've got to create heavens and hells and, universes and everything with like that much of a flesh reed in your throat.
Yeah.
You can't make faces and Matthew McConaughey.
I'm a big Matthew McConaughey fan. I'm pretty sure he's a great guy. I said, I'm a big Matthew McConaughey fan. I'm pretty sure he's a great guy, but I completely agree. There's some guys out there that can come on and they have a distinct voice. But at the end of the day, it's not, they're not doing it because they love it. Some people might, because I don't want to overgeneralize.
No,
But
it's not put on.
yeah, you could tell when something's done well and the people care or the people give a shit. You can really tell, and you can really tell when somebody's just doing it for a paycheck or just doing it because, like you said earlier, they're trying to get this show off the ground. And like I said, I'm so glad there's people like you. There's these craftsmen and craft women that really care about what they're doing and really throw in their heart and soul into every character. It's refreshing.
I mean, I was never into celebrity worship. I mean, I had my idols when I was a kid, but they were mostly voice actors. And outside of that, I was in awe of mythology.
Mm-hmm.
I learned to act because, I don't know, when I first saw the Three Stooges, I stopped going to church. I found my saints.
Yeah.
They used to show the Three Stooges before I went to school, grade school, every morning. And I just didn't want anything to do with school. Here I was sitting there, and without realizing, I was learning how to act. I was learning comedic timing.
Mm-hmm.
I was learning antics and why something's funny and why something is not funny. There's a difference between wacky and funny, and some people don't know that difference. And so I felt like, I hated school. I just hated it. I was on the spectrum, autism spectrum.
Yeah.
And so nothing made sense to me. Nothing at all. I had to struggle through everything to get my head around stuff. And I had to process everything upside down backwards.
Yeah.
And that was extremely difficult. But underneath all that shit, there are gifts that are you're given. There's like storage rooms in your head that are unlocked, and you have access to rooms that most people don't.
Yeah.
And that's where you find the gifts in there. I just had a freakish voice that, it's plain vanilla, but I mean, I could go anywhere and do anything with it. And I didn't know what good it would do anybody. I just thought it was something everybody else could do.
When did you realize that?
I realized that, like, after I got out of high school, that, I tell people, like, you're going to run into a hard time if you have any real talent, because people will let you know quick that you're a threat.
Yeah.
By freezing you out or whatever, pulling little mental games on you. Because I used to be with these guys, and I would work on something, just like something to go and say, hey, listen, I figured this thing out, and I'm going to do it. And they would sit there and just look at me. And I used to go home thinking, how friggin' good do you have to be?
Yeah.
Oh, so that drove me to become like a superlative,
mm-hmm.
because these people were just unimpressed. And then later on, I mean, see, there's no future you that can visit that self that you were and say, do you know why they sit there and act bored? Because you are a constant and painful reminder of what they will never, ever, ever be able to do in their life.
Yeah.
No matter how hard they try. And that's why
Do you think that's why you're as prolific as you are now, is because I always had to be better, or I had to get better, or?
I had to be better in any other way besides like sports, and I had no coordination. I could sing and I could play guitar and anything vocal, but there was no business, no place to apply it. You know what I mean? I was in band stuff as I was coming up, but I hadn't been convinced that I should do voiceover. And then one day I found my way to a radio station in Boston, an FM station. I won a contest that they were having. And it was, if you can sound like Mel Blanc, call in.
Yeah.
So I call in and did my bit. And next thing you know, I was being asked to come into the radio station and participate. And I wound up writing bits, the blank piece of paper at 7:30 in the morning. And then by 8, you've got to have something recorded and created characters and wrote your own material. That was a very special environment because you really were always being put upon, like, to create. And I enjoyed it so much because it was discipline. I didn't have a lot of discipline. And I had to develop that and professionalism,
Are you from Massachusetts?
No, not originally. I was born in Detroit, Michigan, but I grew up in Boston.
Yeah. My wife's family there. I just went and visited Boston before everything shut down for the first time. And my wife and them are from Middleborough, Massachusetts. But I was trying to pick out the accent. So I didn't know if it, like most guys that I know, they try to drop that accent because they say they hear them with that accent. They're like, ugh, which it can be a little.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Tell me about it, right? Yeah, sure. Seriously.
What was
do this shit, dude. Rollins.
Which what do you remember what voice you used when they when you heard that commercial for If You Sound Like Mel Blanc, call in?
Oh, I was just doing all kinds of Mel Blanc voices.
Yeah.
They let me have it. I was just like, and there's a final word. Goodbye. And that's all, folks.
Was he one of your? Was he one of the guys you looked up to? Would he be on your Mount Rushmore?
Yes, he absolutely is. It's just Mel, and then there's other Mount Rushmores, but the Mount Rushmore of Mel is just Mel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's everybody else. He was the the Big Bang. Yeah, there was nobody like him. Nobody is nobody like him. I mean, you can watch all of his other things. I mean, the cartoons pretty much in and out, but if you go back and look at his TV appearances, and he was doing these incredible things right before your very eyes, it's like a lot of that is missing nowadays. People used to have real magic because it was either that or be, an unemployed bum.
Yeah.
In a bar room somewhere. It was like England, you could be either a coal miner or you could be a superstar.
Yeah.
Take your pick. There was nothing in the middle. And I was kind of like, he could just embody anything, like animals, and give them personalities, and inanimate objects even got voices after Mel Blanc got through with them. I mean, he lit the way for everybody. I met him.
Yeah.
Met him a long time ago, and he was super nice. He's a little old guy, who when hell would break loose when he got on a microphone.
Yeah.
It must have been like, now we're used to seeing people on a microphone doing amazing things and whatnot, but back then I can't imagine what people did when they saw him performing. It must have been like a shock.
What was that meeting like?
It was one in a million.
When you got to meet him, what was that meeting like? Were you a kid again in front of him, or?
No, I was working in Boston in radio, and I read that he was going to be doing a voice and slideshow at a local university. And I said, I got to go out there. It was just barely in the paper. You'd blink and miss it. So my girlfriend and I went out there to see him, and I was in the audience, and he came out, and I was like, there he is. There's the guy, the dude. It was like, to me, he had a light around him. And then at the end of his show, he said, so if anybody wants to come up and get some autographs, why don't you form a line over here? That's what he talked like. And I got up, and I was so out of control that I was rushing to get to the stage or the seat where he was sitting, and I was body slamming little kids out of the way and checking them into the boards like a hockey player. And he went, could you let the little kids go first? You know, it was like being yelled at by Mr. Spacely. Jensen, you're fired.
Thank you. I always like seeing or hearing when you guys have these stories. Thank you for sharing that, by the way. I really appreciate that. It's always nice knowing that while you guys are human, you know, you're gods to us, or you're heroes to us, whatever you want to put, whatever euphemism, whatever word you want to put in here, you know, we look up to you. So it's always seeing who you guys look up to. And then it's cool seeing that you guys have the same feelings that we have towards you.
We have the same feelings as anybody else who ever came along. Is if you make it in a certain field, there's this truth that keeps staring you in the face. Why was everything so much better before you came along? Why were these guys so just unbelievably talented and like touched by God? And the movie Midnight in Paris with Owen Wilson explains that whole thing so beautifully. Woody Allen's movie, where he's in Paris with his in-laws and his wife, and he goes for a walk. He's a romantic, you know, and he's dreaming about the 18th century and early 20th century. And he was thinking in terms of artists, you know, like Hemingway and Louis Malle and William Faulkner and all this, because he was a writer. And this scene happens where he's walking through town at midnight, and it's foggy, in this like yellow sort of limousine type vehicle, old fashioned from the 30s, would have the door open and he'd get in and all these people would be in there. Ernest Hemingway, you know, I'm trying to think of who else they used. Louis Malle, you know, filmmakers and everything. And the way you got to see the movie, because it explains why we always feel like the best stuff was done before we were born.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what Louis Malle thought. You know, after another filmmaker had made such a huge impact, and Louis Malle himself, a genius, thought, you know, I only aspire to be maybe partially great like that in my life. I think it's the time that you live in and the time that you're born and what the emotional resonance in the world is at that time. So I didn't get into the business to sound like Mel Blanc. I mean, that was like not what I wanted to do. I could do those things, but it led me to, you know, create characters, and just that's what he did. He created characters. And so, you know, I didn't want to be the next Mel Blanc. I just wanted to be the best me that I could be.
How long did it take you to have that mindset? Because, you know, as a kid or as an adult, a young adult, you have this heroes you look up to. You know, for in the food industry, it was always Emeril Lagasse for me. I had to be as good, or I had to be just like him. And then when you get into the kitchen and you start really working, right? You start making sauces and soups, and you start learning knife cuts and knife skills, and just proper kitchen etiquette. You realize you'll never be, excuse me, you'll never be an Emeril Lagasse. You'll never be a Mel Blanc. You can only be you.
Well, you can't steal their soul.
What was it like? What was it like for you though? Like, did you ever see like, oh man, I'm kind of taking his cadence, I got to find my own thing? Or
no, because when you're hired to do a replication, you should be as faithful as you could be. And then maybe, just maybe, throw in little things of your own, which is treading on blasphemy territory. But no, I tried to do my absolute best when it came to replicating the characters. You know, even Elmer Fudd, that wasn't Mel Blanc, but I got the job to do him in a lot of things, you know. And he was just Arthur Q. Bryan was a curious character, you know. But he was like a vaudevillian, and he would tell people these stories, you know, stories. And he would say like, shh, be very, very quiet. I'm hunting rabbits.
Who's your favorite Looney
Tune hunter? Which there's nothing funnier than that in the entire world.
Who was your favorite Looney Tune to do and then watch?
my favorite one. Oh gosh, I don't know. You know what? It came under the heading of Looney Tunes, but it wasn't a Mel Blanc episode. It was an early cartoon called I Love to Singa, and it was a musical, and it was about this owl couple. He was a music professor, Professor Owl, and he taught music, and his wife was dutifully, getting ready to lay a few eggs, and then they hatch, and one little owl comes out and he's playing a flute, and the other one is playing like a violin, and the father's going, a Heifetz, and he's so proud and happy, and then they tap on the last egg, and it kind of has a hollow ring to it, and it hatches, and out comes this little, jazzer, like totally non-classical music, totally not conforming to anything. It's just like, I love the singer, I like the moon and the tuna and the springer.
I remember this.
And that cartoon touched me because he was different. He was totally different from what his father wanted. And, and he got basically booted out of his house. So after he leaves his house, he's walking down the street and he starts singing again. And it leads him to a talent show. And he was going to get the floor because his family showed up in the window of the radio station, and it freaked him out. So he started singing, "Drink to me only with thine eyes," and then the judge, Jack Bunny, was the judge. He was about to give the guy the gong or the floorboards or whatever, and the father comes in and saves him. It's like, he said, "Go on, sing." He joins the song. "Go on and sing, like the moon and the June and the Springer." And that cartoon touched me because it was kind of like the story of my own life.
Yeah. So I love the similarities because it's, you meet people that think like you a lot, or, that you guys have a lot of the same similarities. It's always nice seeing that you can pull something and then you associate. And that's kind of how I guess we get through this world. We find something and nobody thinks like me or nobody feels like me. And then you just turn on a TV or you read a book or you listen to a song and it's like, holy shit, there's a lot of people that think like me or feel like me. What was that? Was that the initial thought as a young age? Like, oh man, I feel like this character, or was that something you kind of got when you were older?
I came from a very turbulent household, so I didn't want to call undue attention to myself, but it was baked in the cake. I couldn't help it. I was on the autism spectrum. I had OCD, ADD, every initial thing with initials in it I had. And just didn't know it, and I just thought, why is everything so hard? Why I can't understand something, and why am I getting beaten over the head, with the implement that I can't figure out? My dad was very violent and crazy. So I kept all this stuff under wraps, but now that I look back and now I see a world of people exploring their gifts because they love superheroes.
Yeah.
The superheroes are going to save us. But what they don't realize is that anybody who investigates or identifies with being a superhero, as long as you're not a megalomaniac and a narcissist and all that other crap, the purity of heart of wanting to save or uplift or edify, something noble that will do good for all people. I couldn't be a doctor, and saving people's lives is the most noble thing that you could do. But doing what I do, I think, is maybe the next most noble thing that a person could do, is make everyone else laugh.
Yeah. I mean, there's been people, favorite actor of all time has always been Robin Williams. And for a guy, to go on to whatever is whatever is next after we're no longer here. And he had almost the same philosophy. He would see something or see somebody sad, and then instantly, no matter what kind of shitty day he was having, was to make something brighter. And you said you might not have been a doctor, you couldn't save some lives, but I'm almost 100% sure there's thousands of people out there that with your voice save some lives. I mean, you've gotten me through some dark times in my life. I know that for sure. And I can only
Thanks.
imagine, yeah,
I'm
man,
glad it happened.
I mean, if anybody should be saying thank you, it's you. I mean, you guys sit here and it's a job for you guys. It's a heart and soul, it's passion. And then when we get what you guys give us, and it's amplified, to a whole nother level. And like I said, I'm pretty sure, you not being a doctor, but I'm pretty sure you've saved just as many lives, if not more, than any doctor out there.
Wow. Thank you for those kind words. That's really nice of you.
It's no problem. I know we're getting to the end of our time, so I'm going to go back to how we kind of started it, right? So I got a few questions here, and then we'll pretty much call it, right? So one of the ones that was really, I guess you're probably going to get this asked all the time, but it's probably either top one, top two, but who's your top three favorite characters to really voice, to step in those shoes?
That I voiced?
Yeah.
Let's see. I guess I have to go with the ones that are like permutations of myself.
Okay.
Not that I planned it that way. It's just, no matter what voice you do, you got to be really careful that it doesn't sound like a put on, that whatever my next voice, it's got to sound like it came from somebody else.
Okay.
And not me. That's what makes it authentic. So when you're churning out stuff, you can't live on cliches, and you can't like use tried and true tricks. You've got to be a little adventurous and see if anybody responds to it. The characters, all the characters on Futurama, I absolutely loved.
Yeah.
Greetings from the year 3000. It still sucks. Young lady, bring me a sandwich from the dumpster and leave the maggots on it. I'm scuttling. She's a beautiful ship, all right. I'm gonna fly her brains out. And good news, everyone. Bad news. Those are my favorites of all I've done. Ren and Stimpy, I enjoyed it very, very much. I was screaming and yelling a lot. It was good. It was more cathartic than it was anything, because you get junk out of your system, and it was pure screaming and yelling, full force. I used to come out of there with no voice, and I had to go, what are you gonna do? So I had to find a way to do all that stuff without blowing my voice out permanently.
How calm were you after Ren and Stimpy? I gotta imagine you getting all that angst, all that frustration, or just all that yelling out. You got nothing left in the tank, I'm sure.
I think you probably get flooded with a lot of your own body's chemicals. Like, it's so funny. Actors, like the brain, one part of the brain doesn't know you're acting. Like if you're playing somebody that's in sheer terror and you're screaming and yelling, it's like your body is preparing for war.
Yeah.
Doesn't know the difference. It goes with your lead. And so you'll get all these chemicals that a person in that exact perilous situation would get. A lot of it's, adrenaline and endorphins. And I think there's another thing that goes through you. There's dopamine, Yeah, you're triggering all this stuff. So acting is actually physiological.
Yeah.
As well as psychological.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. Your body's not going to, your body doesn't know the difference between a soda and an orange. Sugar is sugar, no matter how you look at it. It's just an orange has got a little bit more fiber and a little bit more of this. So it's not as bad, but at the end of the day, sugar is sugar. So it makes perfect sense. And I liked hearing that, that Futurama was an extension of, that's what it feels like whenever you just slip into those voices. It feels like it's just another arm or another finger, it doesn't feel put on. And I guess that's true craftsman right there.
Well, they're so easy to sound like put-ons.
Yeah.
And that's why a celebrity doing a voice, if they try not to sound like them, it sounds like a put-on. So they're better off just sort of going with the persona of them, how they're perceived by others.
I got you. There was there's one question, but I'm only going to bring it up because it was one of my favorite things you were in. We actually watched it again last night. Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island.
Oh yeah.
After this, me and my wife are going to go try to find costume. We couldn't get anything on Amazon before Monday of next week, but I'm going to go as Shaggy, and then she's going to go as Velma. So that's
cool.
who we're going to dress up. And he wanted to know, which is there's dumb questions out there. This is a dumb question, but is Shaggy a vegetarian? I'm assuming he knows that you were a vegetarian vegan. I'm assuming that's why he's asking, but
no,
exactly.
Shaggy liked junk food, as I recall. You know, he'd share his junk food with the dog, you know. And I guess I think somebody told me they were at a session, and and Casey Kasem was there doing Shaggy, and he's like, you know, come on, Scoob, we gotta get some hot dogs, you know. And then Casey Kasem, he breaks character and he goes, why does it always have to be meat? Why can't it be a veggie snack? Or, you know, he got upset because he was a vegan.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and
that's funny. It's two of you guys.
I just happened to be one.
Yeah. That was funny. Now my buddy Hunter, he wants to know, how was working on a video game like iNinja different from a cartoon?
You got to stay all day long because you have to have responses and vocalizations for every situation that character could be in, whether it's written or not. They want to have all these responses in case a certain thing happens. And in interactive, you never know what response they're going to need. So you've got to record whole gamuts of them.
So you're doing like some angry, some sad, or some like confused.
Yeah, sound like you have trepidation. Sound like you're letting the guy win with a wink, you know. Stuff like that, and screaming, of course.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess that makes sense. Moses wanted to know, do you come up with some sort of interpersonal background for the characters that you've represented? And who was the most complex character from your illustrious career? Moses Martinez.
I go by what they give me for starters, you know. I mean, there's a character Bible, they call it.
Yeah.
And in it is the history of the character, what they tend to have for traits and automatic responses, and are they a good person or are they a not so good person, or can they be both, you know. But they give you all these ideas what they had about the character. Now this was a concerted effort, so I mean, all of a sudden it's on you. They've entrusted you to interpret that character for them.
Yeah.
You're going to say what all those people worked on. And it's spooky because, you know, everybody's going like, we're all counting on you.
Don't fuck this up.
If you're not what they counted on, you don't get the job.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. Just two more here, and then that's pretty much it, man. Which voices did you struggle with the most, and which voices, if you could change and go back and redo, would you?
Oh boy, I wouldn't. I had to learn to compartmentalize because if I was watching with a very critical eye to anything that I did, it would drive me crazy. I'd want to redo everything. Yeah. You know, it's the artist's way. It's like nothing's perfect and you're looking for perfection, and you got to settle for something and you got to give birth to it.
Yeah.
And so I leave it lay. If I think too much about stuff, I'll be like critical and I'll go, oh man, you blew this perfect opportunity. Oh, you could have gone left when it was supposed to go right. And, you know, think yourself into a state of craziness. But, you know, I can always say that I tried to do way more than anybody was asking of me. And I think my job, in a way, one of the top things of importance to me was to surprise everybody.
Yeah.
And see the look of delight when they heard what rang the bell for them. You know, that's a good moment to live for.
Well, like I said, man, you've crushed everything I've ever seen you in. You didn't say you were royalty. You're very humble, but like I said, you and Rob are the top of the top, and that's nothing disparaging against any other voice actor or voice actress out there. It's just you two are the guys that sit, right here in my heart the most.
Well, I'm honored to hear that, because I think so highly of Rob. I love working with the guy. He went through a lot,
yes.
And he came out the other side, I think, even better as a person and as an actor. He was up against it, and and he wrote this book, and the book must have been really cathartic for him too. I'm starting to write a book, but it's a lot of it is about my childhood, because you have to tell the truth. You have to talk about stuff, and people will go, "Hey, I thought this was supposed to be an animation. I thought it was supposed to be funny, like a cartoon. Is this book about you or your dad?"
Some of the best parts in Rob's book was him talking about him trying to be the optimistic guy when he's sitting in there fighting for his life and getting chemo and radiation blown up on his throat. Him trying to be that light in such a darkness for all these other people. And it's one of the most touching, and it's one of the most, it hurt reading this. Like you're looking at this guy and listening to what he was going through, and he was trying to work because he did not want to disappoint people.
I know him. I've known him a long time, and I see that as like his guiding light. Yeah.
It's just, it's like what you guys have to really battle through and what you guys go and do. And especially what he did, it's second to none. And it just goes to show you and how much of class he has. Not one time did he say, other than me and him both saying, "Fuck cancer," one time did he say anything disparaging about anything with cancer. He was super upfront about it. He was super fantastic with it. And just like yourself, class acts, man. And I really appreciate you. Like I said, you could have done anything other than talk to me today. And I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
Well, it's like there's almost nothing left to say after you have like this 25, 26-year-old body of work, is that you feel like you love everybody and you wanted to make them happy. And the thing that they have to know is how important they are to us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't think of any better way to end it. I know you said you're working on a book, but is there anything that you're working on now that you can talk about and kind of push people towards to see?
There's stuff that I haven't signed on to yet, and I can't talk about it, but you can wait for part 2 right here.
Well, I'd love to have you back on anytime you want. I always throw this invitation out there. You guys are more than welcome anytime. When you're in Orlando, come by, just hit me up, and you guys will have the greatest meal you will. Well, it'll be some struggle for vegan stuff, but I'm telling you, it'll be the best vegan meal you'll ever have.
Nice.
Once again, thank you so much for taking the time.
Hopefully
we get a part 2, and you have a great day, Billy.
You too. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye. Take it easy.